Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of CCT, the first 5 years.
Oh, it's so exciting. We've had at least maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 of these go out so far. So if you haven't seen one and you're wondering who the hell we are, uh, I'm Gail Becker.
And I'm the heck Andrew Abrams, and we are the founders of Capital City Theater in Madison, Wisconsin. And we are in our Lady Day. Well, actually, we have a little crossover guest today.
Yeah.
We just had our wonderful interview with Tracy Conyer-Lee, our star of Lady Day. And I'm going to admit...
So we're chatting with
a
whole bunch of people that we've worked with in the last 5 years, or first 5 years. God, I keep doing that. For CCT, and they could be performers, or they were people who worked on our shows, or directors, or whatnot. And yeah, so that's why we're doing this little recap.
All right.
We got a great guest today.
Our guest today is Stephen Nachamie, who was our director for Lady Day, and is also our director choreographer for Ain't Misbehavin, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a little bit. So here comes Stephen.
Welcome, Stephen!
Joining us from the set of Downton Abbey.
Or Belgravia, whichever you're watching right now.
That's more Belgravia, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I just figured more people would know Downton. Have you been watching Belgravia?
I have, but then they took it off. Yeah, I only got to see 2 episodes.
Epics. It's a whole little
Epics, okay.
scam thing going on, but it's really good.
It is good. I liked it. Yeah,
anyway,
what I saw so far.
But more importantly, here is Stephen Nachamie. We just told everybody that you were our director for Lady Day and that you are our director choreographer for Ain't Misbehavin. Welcome from, I believe you said you're in Massachusetts, right?
Yes.
Massachusetts.
When the porter yells, Massachusetts, I'll be there with bells, Massachusetts.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's a great song. It's a good song.
I don't know that song. Who wrote it?
I'll look it up later.
Okay.
How are you passing the days? I know you're doing some teaching and everything from your home up there in Massachusetts, right, Stephen?
Yeah, I'm doing sort of a combination of teaching and teaching scene study on Zoom, which is kind of interesting because this generation grew up with cell phones and FaceTime. So it's actually been a smoother transition than I thought it would be because people are not in the same room, but we can still have the connection. I've been doing that. I've been collaborating with several teams on new plays. I've been writing a couple things, been taking the dog for a lot of walks, and doing it. Headspace has really good short exercise videos to make you remember that you haven't gotten up yet.
Breathe in and out one.
No, these are physical though. They now have Headspace Move, which is like get your butt up and move so you can breathe.
Nice. Okay.
Nice.
Maybe I should log into that.
One of the places that Stephen teaches is the New York Film Academy, which I actually taught at for a few years too. So,
and no, not me.
Not you. But Stephen and I knew each other well before that. So that was just another one of the places we cross over because what do I say, Gail, about Stephen? What do I say to the world?
Everybody knows Stephen.
No, all roads lead to Stephen.
All roads lead to Stephen. So in other words, this video is going to have like viral hits.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
All roads. So, so we're going to look back for a second on Lady Day before we look forward. What is, I know that you directed that show a couple of times, Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill, which is...
It was just once before.
Right. And it's a one-woman show about Billie Holiday. It's amazing. It's a wonderful piece. You had directed it once before with Tracy.
With Tracy and with Kenny. It's sort of a two-person show because it's her accompanist who's kind of trying to save her life when she's not really...
Right.
She's dealing with addiction, so she's not really in the same place.
Right.
Yeah, it was. I've the first time I did it, I was introduced to the playwright, to Lainey Robertson, who was so wonderful and so generous, and he was able to come see that one, and we were able actually to have discussions about where the play came from and what was real, what was fact, what was an amalgam. Mm-hmm. And Lainey and I were still in touch actually when we were doing it because it was a whole new production. The first time I did it was a theater that was like 500 seats with stadium seating. So when Tracy looked ahead of her, she was in the bar, but when she looked ahead of her, she saw like a wall of people.
Black, right, yeah.
And she had done it, I think, once before. I cast her, then she got it somewhere else after I cast her. So she went to do it, then we did it. and looked at it a whole new way. And what was amazing about this was the intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
Because the first time she did it, she said, I'm in a place at Billie, and I'm okay not seeing the audience. And then this time I said, well, I think it's a great place to grow, because to get the points across, she gets across with her pain, you know, and her humor, they're right there. So it was really kind of a growing experience. And it was a very, very different production than the first one we did.
Yeah, in fact, when we were talking to Tracy just a couple of days ago, she mentioned that he said, well, this was the first time you did it where there were tables and people in a bar-like setting where they were at tables and you could actually go down into the audience and talk to them. And she said, yeah, it was a totally different experience. And I think she really enjoyed that interaction after she got over the fright of it.
Well, what was great is that she could take everything that she had learned and embodied about the character, and it made the journey more exciting and more precarious.
Mm-hmm.
Because now Billie's trying to get a lifeline. Billie Holiday, this could be her last chance. It is her last chance to turn her life around, and it really made it more precarious, because now there were people who were, back in the day when we could, have breathing distance, who saw that she was in danger. The piece is really interesting because what I learned about it the first time I did it is that the audience comes in, Billie's really fun, she sings, she entertains the audience. So people think it's going to be like a tribute concert,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and they fall in love with the character. And then it's the relationship of what happens when your heroes can't save themselves. Sort of the relationship when you're dealing with somebody who's taken over by addiction, where you want to take care of them, and then you realize there's a point where they're not in their corner. And so that relationship and that journey was it was powerful, and it was different, it was precarious, because the audience was right there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Was there anything that you learned or that was different for you this time around that you maybe didn't, that occurred to you, or that you discovered or realized this time around?
Yeah. What's interesting, it really was a very different piece, because when you're doing it in a larger space where you see the audience is actually an audience, they're in rows and all of that, the audience hears the show in a different way and sees the show in a different way. So there are different points that you have to make sure are hit. And there were so many things that were illuminated by the fact that it was so intimate and the audience was right there. What was interesting is things that I thought really needed to be hit last time, I realized Billie could throw away as barbs, because then they'd come back later, or not even as barbs, as jokes. That the things that were most painful to her were the things that, to survive to where she was, she had to find humor about. She had to find a way of survival. Mm-hmm. So what I found out about the piece is that the audience can feel her pain so much more when they see she's at a place where she can't even feel the pain. Mm. Where she can't survive by feeling it.
That's really amazing. Yeah.
And one more thing that we found was the relationship between Billie and Jimmy Powers, her accompanist, is how much he was there at the audience. He could see the audience's eyes. So when things went off the rails, you saw him trying to save it, but you also saw him trying to save her a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we sold out that show, and I mean, it wasn't a giant house. It was 110 people or something, but we sold that show out, and a large amount of our audience were jazz people. They were jazz music, people that loved jazz and loved Billie and and that was, it was interesting for us because it was not your typical. I mean, there were some musical theater people there, but it wasn't your typical musical theater crowd. We had a lot of jazz. It was a really good blend.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and what's great about that piece is you really need someone who understands jazz and expression through the voice. And Tracy comes from a jazz family. I believe her father is a jazz player, and so she understood how to sing that, how to speak that language. Because what's interesting with this piece is when you see somebody who is not that immersed, like Audra McDonald fully dove in the water there to learn it. When you see somebody who's musical theater doing it, you get taken out a little bit. Because the way jazz musicians communicate with each other and the audience is through a breath. It's through a breath and through instinct. It's not so much through, okay, here we go.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Yeah. You left after the first weekend, right? You weren't there for the whole.
Yeah, I didn't get to see the second weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we were talking on Monday how we had a school matinee for high school students, and
Yeah.
we had one of our city high schools had come on, I think it was Thursday, to see it, and Tracy loved it because they asked such poignant questions. And I think the thing that they realized in that show was that some of the, I don't know, social, ethnic situations that, discriminations that we're having today, sadly have not changed since the 50s. And I think they were surprised by that. And learned a lot and asked questions relevant to that. And I remember I felt so great after that Q&A, because I thought we had reached some people that may not have seen the show otherwise, and that was.
And to experience that type of real, like you said, intimate, almost cabaret style setting, like that was something very new to them. So to watch them like absorb it and just really fall in love with that was exciting.
Well, what was really interesting is Tracy Lee, as long as I've known her, I met her, I think it was on the first show that I actually stepped up from associate to director. It was a production of Beehive, which, if you can imagine, that's a 60s girls group.
Yeah.
Review, but we took it a little deeper. We dug into the characters to play. So I knew that we communicated then, and we worked together on World Goes Round and a couple other shows. But Tracy's not an actress that's like, okay, I'm running with this. And she's a collaborator. So after the first week, we had a really long discussion where she said, hey, I've learned this, this, and this. Can I try this here and this here and see where it goes? And I thought it was fascinating. So I said, run with it. And we had a long talk after that matinee. Mm-hmm. Because because it blew her away. That, it's interesting because I think we have this idea that a younger generation might also go, who is Billie Holiday? But mm-hmm. that voice and those songs are so embedded in our culture, right? That even if they don't know who she is, they can relate to the song, and then somewhere in it connects.
Yeah, in fact, I just remembered you said that, and I just remember that you and Kenny and Tracy all worked for a week before, or was it a week or was it a few days or something, before you even came to Madison. You all were in New York, so you were able to get together and actually rehearse before even coming here. Because, sorry.
Well, I was going to say that so much of that show, because it's not like Billie's accompanist can help her if lines go away or if beats go away. So Tracy and I, it was like stamina just to get it back into her body, so that she had those muscles built, she had those lines built. So when we got into the space, because that was a big talk we had, was, okay, we did it this way before, we here's a framework we did before, it's all going to change in the space because we're all going to learn something different. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you got here, we put that show up in 4 days. Something like that.
So you didn't get a ton of time to like hang out in Madison, but do you remember any part of Madison that like you thought, oh, this town is cool because of this? Or did you have any moment in Madison that you thought, oh, this is,
Oh, I love the college area. I got to see a couple of museums. I am the rare class of native New Yorker who does not have a driver's license, so I was on foot.
Oh, right.
But I got to catch up with some friends who said, oh, look at this, look at that. And Andrew was like, oh, you've got to see this. So to be able to have the show up and be there that first weekend and trust, have this trust with the company that I really just adored. There was one day where I think I said that to you, Andrew. I said, I really want to see some stuff. And you said, we both decided let the show breathe without the director going like this one.
Well, one of the people, I should add, one of the people you saw and hung out with there was Liz Griffith, who was our Gypsy Rosalie in Gypsy just the year before that.
And we had worked together on, I feel like we did a reading, but we also did The Marvelous Wonderettes.
Oh, another great show.
Yeah, where I knew her voice. And it was a character that she could really dig into. So we kept sort of like going deeper and deeper into how far she could go into this really controlling character that was going to have a meltdown at the other girls. And,
So Ain't Misbehavin' was supposed to have closed last weekend.
Last
Or was
Sunday.
it week and a half ago, I guess now.
My calendar reminded me of all that.
I know.
I can't thank
And,
you all enough for the support during this situation.
I
And
know. No,
well,
no.
and of course, it didn't happen. And we so far have been, and I say this cautiously, lucky enough to have the same cast that are willing to come back in September when we remount the show. Now that, all things being hopeful and crossing everything that you
Yeah.
have
I know, right?
do it in September. If that happens, it will be a huge stroke of luck that we can get the venue, that we can get the actors, our musicians. I think we had one or two trade outs, but mostly intact. And it's just so funny that the two shows, and I mean, there's no reason that we specifically hire you to do these types of shows, but it's funny that the two shows that you've done for us after this one's over are the shows that are jazz, pre-1960.
yes.
And in a bar.
In a bar.
We just keep setting you up in a bar.
Yeah.
And why not? I mean, I don't know. I'm a
It
lightweight.
actually might work to our favor in September regarding, like how many people are available in a room and stuff like that. So that's why we're really, really hoping, because we have such flexibility of what we can do with our audience members and how to space them.
And I have to add in there that I don't even know if you know this, Stephen. Our set is finished.
I know, they sent me pictures.
It's absolutely beautiful. I mean,
Gorgeous.
it's just so great.
Yeah.
It looks gorgeous.
And I just have to shout out to Amy Hanazuski and John Frauci.
Absolutely.
For Amy designed it and John built it, and they did a wonderful job. And the thing that's great about this is, even God forbid something should happen that we cannot do it again in September, the show will go up.
It will.
That is done. It will happen.
Somewhere.
Amy and John were just so amazing. I probably 2 weeks into this being out of New York, Amy started texting me going, "Oh, let's meet now." And I said, "Oh, what?" And she said, "Oh, no, we haven't stopped. We've been safe, but we kept going." She's like, "We wanted to see this. We wanted to make it happen." And
So what is it that excites you about Ain't Misbehavin'? What is it that you love about this show? Because you've done this show before too.
I did this show before, but what's interesting about Ain't Misbehavin', it was one of the shows. So here's my story with Ain't Misbehavin'. I remember the TV commercials. I remember the music, and this joint is jumping from the TV commercials when I was a kid. And the American Theater Wing, which, as we know, does the Tony Awards, or if you didn't know, they're a wonderful organization. Back then, the American Theater Wing had this great project working where they would bring Broadway understudies to different New York schools, and they would each do a number from a show. And I think the first time I saw Misbehavin' live, they did the finale, which goes through a whole medley of Fats Waller and recreates the band. They did that at my elementary school, and we had a Q&A, and it blew my mind. And I loved the music. What I loved about the show, because I'm a research nerd, and the second with Misbehavin', I read every Fats Waller biography. There was no DVD, there was no internet at the time. But
Hello, library.
Library.
Hard catalog.
And I would take those LPs out in those plastic sleeves.
Yeah.
The big two set. And Nell Carter was a TV star at that time.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Give me a break.
So then Nell Carter got the whole Broadway cast back to do the show on NBC, and they did the full show to bring it into your home. And what I realized from the biographies is that, okay, this is not just a review. We're telling Fats Waller's life story and experiences through this without saying to the audience, really, hey, here it is. Little tidbits throughout, but it's not a show where it's like, and then he wrote. So that sort of blew me away about the show. And what blew me away is that here's this guy that when you see him, when you're a kid, you're like, Fats Waller, he's the adult. And he had some indulgences. He's somebody who, within a very short lifetime, wrote so much, created so much, was a foremost stride piano player, became internationally known, played Carnegie Hall. When I worked at Carnegie Hall, I was like, where's the poster? Got to see the poster. But it really tells his story. And it's a review that when Richard Maltby created it, they had these songs. It was a collaborative experience coming together, because all of a sudden you had Ken Page, and who was Deuteronomy and Cats and a million things. You had Nell Carter, she was in the movie of Hair at that time, and she'd done some Broadway shows, but she was a star.
Mhm.
Amelia McQueen, if you can look her up, she is one of the most she's a hidden secret that need not be hidden. Anybody who's seen Ghost, she plays Whoopi Goldberg's sister in it. But Amelia McQueen has this delicious
Oh,
voice.
I didn't realize
Yeah.
that.
So you had these three women with very distinct personalities. Everything in the show is engaged. It's playful. It's a little bawdy. It's very smart. And then you had Charlene Woodard, who came to New York to be a Shakespearean actress and sang. And all of a sudden, she got to create this wonderful role. And Broadway legend Andre DeShields, who got his Tony in his 70s. He was
And
the
went to
original.
Madison.
And went to UW-Madison for his undergrad.
So
We're
you
gonna try
had-
and reach out to him, say hey.
Oh, he's amazing. He's amazing. You had this all-star cast who was in it to tell the story and play and have fun. So it's what I love about the piece is that there's leeway to tell the story. It's very intimate, or it's well done on an intimate scale, because a lot of people know the songs but haven't heard the lyrics in this way. They haven't heard, there are a couple of songs that were only instrumental that they wrote lyrics to tell a certain part of his story, or set you in the Waldorf, or, you know, Tain't Nobody's Business, you know, If I Do at the beginning. They added a verse about live to die before I'm 40. It's thrown at you, and that's all about Fats Waller's life and how he lived. But what I love about it is you get to explore this extraordinary musical genius, and you really get this experience, this joy, this catharsis, because Black and Blue is a number that they do a cappella at the end, which basically deals with social injustice at the time, that anger, that rage, that sadness, everything that's still going on now. And the cast, everything's put away. It's all a cappella. It's just the cast and the audience in a, you know, very intimate. It's a show that I think takes the audience on a ride they don't expect to go on, and leaves them wanting more, wanting to be with those actors again and see it again, come see it twice. And
Right.
also wanting to know this music, because, you know, It's a Sin to Tell a Lie, I Can't Give You Anything But Love, Honeysuckle Rose, Ain't Misbehaving. These are all songs that are in our culture.
Yeah. And speaking of leaving them wanting more, we we have to wrap up in a minute here.
Yeah.
But Stephen, you always have a wealth of knowledge and information about every show you do, which is something I admire about you and love about you as a director and as a human. And we're so thrilled to have you with us on this journey.
Thank you.
Wherever and whenever it takes us.
Yeah, we are super grateful that you are you got your hooks into the first 5 years of.
I can't thank you enough.
Which
It's
is
been
great.
amazing. And it's been
We're so
amazing
excited.
watching your theater grow and grow and grow. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you for being with us today, and stay safe and stay healthy. And
thank you. You too.
What's the first restaurant you're gonna go to when you are able to gather again? What you got?
Oh my God. I really want some good Thai food.
Everybody wants Thai.
Everyone wants to go to Yum Yum.
Yum Yum. Well, there's only one Yum Yum now. It closed.
What? There's only one left?
There used to be 3. There's one left now, and hopefully it will still be there.
Wow.
Okay.
All right.
Reservation in at Yum Yum.
New York changed with the breeze. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Stephen.
Good to see you. Thanks.
Bye.
I'll talk to you.
To talk to you. We'll talk to you.
Well, thank you to Mr. Stephen Nachamie for joining us today, and he's so good at research. I mean, when we have the production meetings, they're lengthy and never boring.
No.
I mean that in a good way. Like, he always has so much knowledge.
So we'll make sure that we keep you all updated about hopefully when Stephen is in town and the work we're doing on Ain't Misbehavin', and hopefully end of September. Please.
And we know that right now is a time where everybody is in need, and like all the other arts organizations in the world, we are one of those as well. So if you feel that you would like to, that you've maybe enjoyed these, that you've enjoyed the stuff you've seen on our stage, that you'd like us to bring you more things,
right?
Feel free to go to our website and click on the donate button, and anything helps. So feel free to show your support.
And some quick thank yous, of course, to Evan Lang, who wrote our little intro and outro.
Yeah.
And our other team of tech people are helping us with these videos, which is, Kaylee and Beth and Paul. So we're just grateful for being able to bring you some fun, live
Yeah.
interviews going on.
And until next time, stay safe, and thank you to all the people that help us get through this. And
Yep.
we'll see you. We'll
Stay
see
the
you next.
course. We're gonna bust this. It's gonna be done.
New show next time. We'll have to wait and see what it is.
Staying positive. Yeah, really. Thank you.
All right. Bye.